or I don't know when it will be the time to go back home. And it sucks.
Said like there was nothing for us to do except just struggle, and we all struggled together, we all came together, and we all triumphed together.
I think everyone's just trying to get over what's happened and trying to get back to normal day to day.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of 23 ABC News at 6. I'm Jessica Harrington. Tonight marks 6 months since the city of Ridgecrest was rattled by the powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake in July. A tremor so powerful it was felt throughout Kern County. Even people in LA and Las Vegas felt the earth move. Many in Ridgecrest and Trona still picking up the pieces since that fateful summer night. A 6.4 tremor rattled Ridgecrest on July 4th as officials from the county responded to help residents in the area. But it was just a foreshock because the 7.1 hit just a day later. The aftermath is still felt till this day. Tonight, we hear from seismology experts about the impacts. We speak with people from Ridgecrest and Trona about their road to recovery, as well as looking at whether Bakersfield is prepared for a similar situation. But we start with 23 ABC's Bayon Wang and a look back at those days.
It was supposed to be a day full of festivities to celebrate our nation's independence. But in Ridgecrest, the community was rocked by a 6.4 quake that surfaced on the 4th of July.
Get under the table. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
The Ridgecrest community in shock. Officials say that
moments ago, our community members right here in downtown Bakersfield feeling that 6.4 magnitude earthquake.
When the car started swaying back and forth, and
Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency that evening, but a bigger crisis broke through Earth's surface just 24 hours later, crippling the small town. The twin quakes would be the biggest to hit California in 2 decades. Seismologists say the 7.1 tremor that struck on July 5th was 10 times stronger than the 6.4 foreshock the day before. It was felt by approximately 30 million people in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico. Flames turned structures into infernos. The quake leveling an entire theater inside a cinema.
The roof is the roof caved in on it.
People are incredibly lucky that the theaters were closed and that nobody was inside.
You know, it means a lot. This is the only theater that's here. We've already had
Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake, a massive military facility in the Mojave Desert, reported more than $5 billion worth of damage. The historic earthquakes prompting state, local, and federal officials to meet in the small town of Trona in San Bernardino County, a community battered by the quakes about 20 miles from Ridgecrest.
We need water in this town. They just said there's water hooked up, but I don't have water to my house.
I haven't had water since Friday. We want answers and we can't get them.
Trona's water tanks were destroyed, gas and power were unattainable, and resources were not immediate.
This happened on a holiday weekend, and to get resources, it was very difficult.
In the days following, President Trump approved an emergency declaration to send federal aid to towns affected by the twin quakes. Since then, thousands of aftershocks have occurred in Ridgecrest. Seismologists, geologists, and a band of various researchers studying the phenomena as a long-awaited big one lies beneath California's surface.
Those time frames, it's aftershock. It's an aftershock. You're okay.
In Bakersfield, Bayon Wang, 23 ABC connecting you.
The shock of these earthquakes didn't stop on July 4th and 5th because aftershocks have continued to hit the Ridgecrest area. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, there have been more than 43,000 aftershocks recorded since the first earthquake on July 4th. Of those aftershocks, 5,900 of them were between 2.0 and 2.9 magnitude. 1,000 were between 3.0 and 3.9 magnitude. 105 of them between 4.0 and 4.9. 6 of them were between 5.0 and 5.9. All of those numbers, according to the USGS. An estimated 40 mobile homes and trailers were deemed uninhabitable. The roof of the Ridgecrest Cinema partially collapsed and numerous businesses lost goods as items on the shelves spilled onto the floor. Months later, people are still trying to piece back together their lives following Mother Nature's powerful force on the small desert community. 23 ABC's Emma Lockhart spent time in Ridgecrest speaking with residents still recovering both emotionally and physically.
It's been 6 months since the quakes, but here in communities like this one, it seems like no time has passed by at all. Many of these homes remain unlivable. And speaking with residents here, the pain is still very fresh. It's deceiving at first glance.
I don't think a lot of people still know that a lot of us still don't have our homes.
Just driving through, you see the small community of Ridgecrest, tucked away in the Mojave Desert, standing strong after enduring 2 powerful back-to-back earthquakes 6 months ago. But if you look closer, homes are still damaged and lives uprooted.
I wanted it to be a dream. I wanted to wake up and everything be okay, but it wasn't.
Some families' futures still uncertain.
You know, I don't know when it's going to be the time for us to go home or when we can go home. And it's hard because I don't want to lose that place. I don't, and I feel like I am going to lose it.
25-year-old Crystal Hernandez's mobile home was knocked off its foundation and red tagged following the quakes just 2 months after she moved in. The single mother of 3 temporarily living with her brother as her home remains unsafe to live in.
Just losing it, it's horrible because now not only did I put my heart and soul and everything in it, but now it's just a memory now because I can't afford to fix it.
Hernandez, who doesn't have earthquake insurance, says it would cost $8,000 to repair her home, money she simply doesn't have. And that appears to be the case for many others in mobile home parks hit hard by the quakes, some still without a home or forced to walk away due to repair costs.
There are just certain parts of the town in which you see all of this.
Kenneth Etcheberry is with the Ridgecrest Lions Club, one of the many local organizations stepping up to help people get back on their feet.
Providing food and rental assistance to motel rooms, to raising mobile homes like this one.
That responsibility falling on the backs of community members and local groups after Ridgecrest was denied federal financial assistance.
FEMA's criteria for the amount of financial damage that's done wasn't exceeded.
Considering the strength of the quakes the city held up, Mayor Peggy Breeden says that's because a majority of Ridgecrest is up to current earthquake standards.
If it had been elsewhere, we'd have had major damage.
Yet residents like Hernandez are dealing with major damage to the place they call home, forced to pay out of pocket even with some financial help from the Lions Club. Hernandez, like many others, putting on a brave face in the midst of adversity.
I hold everything back. It's because of my kids, because I don't want them to see or think, something's going to happen again. I want to be strong for them. And I'm trying my best.
Just heartbreaking hearing from some of those people who were still devastated by these quakes. But one thing everyone has said is just how much this community came together for one another, some even staying here because of it. Reporting in Ridgecrest, Emma Lockhart, 23 ABC, connecting you.
Families really impacted, and the earthquakes also had an impact on business in the Ridgecrest community, including that movie theater and a convenience store. 23 ABC's Alex Bell has more on how businesses are doing in the area.
Everything was knocked over. There was liquid everywhere.
Nathan Shane Burleson remembers just months ago what that convenience store down the street from where he lives looked like after that 7.1 earthquake hit. He says parts of the ceiling were missing and there were long lines of people waiting for food and water because
the grocery stores were finished for a few days.
But what he remembers most is what has been emerging from Ridgecrest ever since, a sense of community and helping one another.
We were just sitting right there at the door telling them what we needed, and they'd go get it through the wreckage because there was so much damage that we couldn't come in.
Just a few blocks over, the Ridgecrest Cinema also hit hard, part of the ceiling completely collapsing, but now under construction.
I was just at Ridgecrest Cinema 2 days ago with my grandkids, and we noticed that half of the building was closed because they were remodeling, and the other portion was still open.
While businesses work on reinforcing their buildings, the community is reinforcing their bond.
I think for the most part, a lot of the local businesses have come together and a lot of people are trying to support them. Local residents are trying to support them as well.
People say initially it took some time, but businesses have started to bounce back.
There's a lot of cleanup, so I feel like that kind of hindered them at first, but now everything's pretty much back to normal.
If you take a wide look at Ridgecrest today, it's hard to tell that just 6 months ago the city was shaken. But if you look close enough, you can see the reminders. Sears Heating and Air Conditioning hasn't reopened, and at Saracoso Community College, signs are posted on the window stating that they are repairing from the earthquake. Peggy Breeden, the mayor of Ridgecrest, says the biggest economic impact for the city will come from a $3.1 billion project to repair the damage at the Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake.
They're estimating 2,000 people coming in town to help make those repairs and to move here.
Most residents we spoke to say the rebuilding process has made them thankful for their local businesses.
It really meant a lot to all of us in the community because we had nowhere to turn.
The quake may have rocked a few buildings, but it didn't shake the heart of the community. Many saying they don't plan on leaving the place that they call home.
To uproot and move, I think that it would be devastating for me because I love my home, I love the community, and this is a great place.
I'm Alex Bell for 23 ABC News, connecting you.
And that community staying strong tonight. We still have much more to get into in this 23 ABC special coming up.
The one thing I hope the lesson is not learned is that, we can handle a magnitude 7. Put this earthquake through Bakersfield instead of through Ridgecrest. And you'll see that there's going to be a lot more damage.
Still to come, we hear from Dr. Lucy Jones, who kept the nation up to date on what residents could expect in the days after the seismic activity. She explains the long-lasting impacts. And the road to recovery for Trona residents continues. We'll tell you all about how people in the small San Bernardino town are doing 6 months later.
A magnitude 7 usually has aftershocks that last for years.
Yeah, so the expectation is we're going to have aftershocks tonight. It's going to continue on.
That was seismologists Dr. Lucy Jones and Rob Graves addressing the long-term aftermath of those earthquakes. When the ground shakes, the questions begin. How strong? How dangerous? How long will the aftershocks last? Lucy Jones is the woman with the answers. 23 ABC's Alyssa Flores visited Jones at California's Institute of Technology to find out what we learned from the quakes in Ridgecrest and how long the area will feel the impacts.
A magnitude 7 happens somewhere in California once every 1 or 2 decades.
On July 5th, 2019, it was just outside of Ridgecrest, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake that followed a 6.4 foreshock the day before.
Probability of another 5 in the next week.
Millions turned to seismologist Lucy Jones for answers.
More magnitude 5s to come. What I am providing is reassurance for the community. When the earthquake happens, because it's so sudden, we are all afraid of the randomness of it. What I do when I come in here and give it a number, I give it a name, that's saying somebody understands it.
It was Jones who told us that after the 6.4 tremor, it was possible another big one was on the way. Sure enough, the following evening, a 7.1 quake hit the high desert.
Every time there's an earthquake, we say about 5% of the time we see a bigger one. This was that 1 in 20 times.
Many were in awe during a press conference when Jones called that an aftershock was on the way.
Okay, so we have an earthquake that's already begun.
Seconds later, it was felt.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. Feel it? Yeah.
Again, Jones says this wasn't her prediction, rather new technology, California's early earthquake warning system.
We can use the nearby stations to say an earthquake is already underway, the shaking just hasn't gotten to you yet. And then you get some time before the shaking gets to you if you're at a farther distance.
Jones says watching this technology at work was one of the biggest societal takeaways from the Ridgecrest tremors.
There is now a statewide app. It's called My Shake. You will get whatever warning we have.
Jones says the app will notify you seconds before the shaking starts. And while that doesn't seem like much time, she says it can be enough to make a difference.
Gives you extra time to get under that sturdy table that's going to be the safest place to be.
Reassurance as the high desert has since experienced tens of thousands of aftershocks. And Jones says to expect the shaking to continue there for years.
Probably a few years that you will be feeling regular events. But if you notice, they're a lot less frequent now than they were in July.
She says a quake like this could have been much worse.
We all overestimate the risk of dying in an earthquake, and we underestimate the long-term impact on communities. The one thing I hope the lesson is not learned is that, oh, we can handle a magnitude 7. Put this earthquake through Bakersfield instead of through Ridgecrest, and you'll see that there's going to be a lot more damage.
So how long before Kern County could see another quake of this magnitude?
I think your long-term rate of once every 20 years or so, which means every year has about a 5% chance.
But Jones says you shouldn't wait to prepare.
We need to remember that this is part of life, and don't wait for it to happen to decide how you're going to be ready for it.
For 23 ABC News, I'm Melissa Flores.
Well, another question many people have been asking since the earthquakes is, should I get earthquake insurance? Since the Ridgecrest quake, there has been an uptick of individuals requesting earthquake coverage. Dr. Lucy Jones says at a societal level, it is one of the more important things we can have. That's because it helps with rebuilding and making sure people don't leave the city. But Jones adds that individually, it's up to the person because there's no guarantee you'll need it for your home. Just 22 miles away from Ridgecrest, closer to the epicenter, is the small town of Trona, another community still working to rebuild. 23 ABC's Tori Cooper spoke to a local pastor and parishioner about how the community came together during a time of devastation and turmoil.
Yes, a number of church parishioners in Trona were forced out of their parish. The aftershocks still jolting them weekly or leaving many on edge. However, residents say the quake didn't shake their faith, it strengthened it.
In a town with just a bit more than 1,000 people, no one saw this coming.
Yeah, I just prayed to God that forgive everybody in Trona, Ridgecrest.
Nearly 6 months after a 6.4 and a 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit the cities of Ridgecrest and Trona, Patricia Circles, a parishioner at St. Madeleine Church, says it's a 4th of July weekend she will never forget.
It started slow and then it just got stronger and it just seemed to last forever. And we dove under the table and just things were crashing around us.
The trauma of the unexpected natural disaster still creeping in each time a small aftershock hits her town once again.
You still have eerie feelings when we have an aftershock. You're like, okay, is this going to continue? Is this it? You just don't know.
But Circle says there was only one thing on her mind when she felt the initial shake.
My first thought, are we going to be able to make it home?
Cracks rippled through the only 2 safe routes in and out of Trona, trapping many in the small community. Circles was worried she wasn't going to make it home to her 2 sons who were in Trona at the time when she was in Ridgecrest running errands.
That was the scariest thing,
Uncertain if she would be reunited with her family or if they were okay. Suspense was also overtaking Circles as she pondered whether her church would still be standing after more than 3 decades of service to the community.
Well, you can see the cracks, and these are all as a result of the earthquake.
A church built of cinder block and hope, now cracked in many places, and the aftermath still lingering inside and out. Shortly after the quake, the church building red tagged by code enforcement and parishioners forced out of their church.
Which we've moved from this beautiful church into a living room, so that's hard.
For more than 180 days, local parishioners without their place of worship, now practicing their faith inside this back house with no answers regarding what's next for their parish.
So as long as we can have mass, it's all that matters.
Now, the biggest question left unanswered for Circles and her parishioners is whether or not the Diocese of Fresno is going to choose to rebuild their church or close down their building.
Think positive and pray.
Her faith tested, but the Trona community and other neighboring churches coming together.
They have a strength that is, I think, special.
Trona Christian Fellowship pastor Chris Darling, along with 5 other churches and surrounding communities, pulling together essential resources during a time where there was no water or electricity in the midst of triple-digit heat.
It was amazing because everywhere, out of state, in state, rich people, poor people, bringing, just saying we wanted to help.
With the support of many others, the fellowship was able to provide water, food for children and their parents, hygiene products, and more, under one condition.
Help came from all sections of our community, and we had one rule: nothing negative said here.
A consistent message that prevailed during a time of destruction and loss. Now parishioners just hoping the Diocese of Fresno ignites the life back in their church.
And pray that, they don't shut us down.
Now, with the help of all of the generous donations, the Christian Fellowship of Trona was able to collect enough goods to last more than 30 days in case another major earthquake strikes Trona. But for now in studio, I'm Tori Cooper for 23 ABC News, connecting you.
Great to see them banding together there, Tori. Well, researchers have released the lessons learned from this past summer's earthquakes. The study in the Journal of Science analyzed the most comprehensive and detailed data gathered on the earthquake sequence. The Ridgecrest sequence demonstrated a domino effect of surrounding fault lines, triggering a web of tremors across Southern California. It's been inactive for the past 500 years, but the Ridgecrest quakes have put a strain on it, causing it to slip nearly an inch since July. Still ahead on this special 23 ABC edition, what officials are saying about Bakersfield preparedness for earthquakes. But before we go to break, we asked Ridgecrest Police Chief Jed McLaughlin about how the community responded after those two major quakes.
There were a lot of citizens helping their neighbors, and maybe they'd never talked to their neighbor, but now you have this stranger helping you out.
Welcome back. We want to remind everyone of the importance of being prepared for a disaster. There are a few apps that can be a lifeline in an emergency. One of those being the Ready Kern alert system. It's designed to notify you if there is a safety concern here in Kern County. If you download the app, you will receive emergency voice and text messages. Another app you can use is Smart 911. This can help provide valuable information to emergency crews like allergies, pets, disabilities, and other details. And Governor Gavin Newsom recently announced a new app to alert people about tremors. The Shake Alert system uses sensors on fault lines to detect the start of an earthquake. Those apps are some of the many ways that authorities are preparing for the big one. Of course, notifying the public about a quake is one thing, but is Kern County truly prepared to handle a large earthquake? 23 ABC's Austin Westfall spoke with local leaders and experts to find out.
We all know that being fully prepared for a major earthquake isn't a simple task, but when it comes to the question of if Bakersfield is prepared for the big one, the city has a simple answer.
Yes, we're confident that we can handle that.
City spokesman Joe Conroy says he's sure that in the event a massive earthquake shook Bakersfield to its core, the city's police, fire, and other emergency response personnel are ready to handle the situation.
Obviously, there's going to be a bit of chaos. It's going to be, it's not something that you have every day, and so it's going to be out of the ordinary. But we're prepared to handle any kind of response there.
July's pair of quakes, epicentered in northwest San Bernardino County, hit the communities of Trona and Ridgecrest the hardest. Bakersfield, with a population of over 300,000, was mostly spared. But what's the likelihood that a quake could be centered right underneath the city's feet?
It's a possibility, but likely it's going to be a smaller magnitude earthquake, largely because of where we have faults and the types of faults that we are likely to occur underneath Bakersfield.
But there are dangers just outside of Bakersfield. In 1952, the Tehachapi earthquake killed 12 people in the county and destroyed many buildings in Baco. County officials say California's building codes are updated every 3 years, as we learned from previous earthquakes like the 1952 event, but nothing can guarantee total safety from a very high magnitude quake.
Obviously, if we get a bigger earthquake than probably what we have, say 8 or 9, you may see some severe damage to the structure.
But what about hospitals, one of the most crucial resources during an earthquake? The state rates their seismic safety on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the most favorable score. Adventist Health Bakersfield scoring a 4.6. We spoke with them in July.
We don't take it for granted. We understand we live in an earthquake zone.
Other ratings in Kern County include Mercy Southwest with an average of 4.75, Ridgecrest Regional with an average of about 4, Memorial Hospital about 3.4, and Good Samaritan Hospital in Oildale an average of 2.5. Even though officials are confident we're ready for another big one, the city of Bakersfield and Kern County are currently working together to update their emergency response plan and learn where we're most vulnerable.
We want to identify natural disaster threats before they happen. And so we want to make sure that those are on our radar and that we have plans and procedures in place to address those if that arises.
A major factor in how the city and county will update their plan relies on this survey. It's for anyone living in Kern County, and it asks you to give information about any particular vulnerabilities that you see in your neck of the woods. It closes March 31st, and and you can find the link on our website, turnto23.com. In the studio, Austin Westfall, 23 ABC, connecting you.
And this special look at the impact of the Ridgecrest earthquakes will continue. We'll be right back after this break. And that's going to do it for this special edition of 23 ABC News. You can find all of the stories you saw tonight and important information on our website, turnto23.com. Thanks for joining us. Good night.